nice. I'm,
Very excited.
Read. I'm, like halfway through White Noise.
Nice. How are you enjoying it?
I'm not.
You're not
I
enjoying
think that, for the book club, we have entirely avoided books from white American men from the
Really?
second half of the 20th century.
Yes.
And that's been for the best because all of their books kind of run together. And unless this one has some massive twist, it gives me the exact same impression as fucking John Updike's Rabbit Run. It gives me the same impression, even though it's got more speculative elements. But I'm like,
What's very similar?
yeah, I can. Like all of these authors write in the same tone. Give me Updike, give me DeLillo, give me fucking who else was very
Like Palahniuk?
not that's funny, I wouldn't. No, I'm thinking more like literary fiction. Palahniuk is almost genre. I think of Palahniuk as genre. I think he straddles the line between like literary fiction and like bizarro fiction. Like I wouldn't call Neil Gaiman literary fiction, even if he does literary fiction adjacent things.
So would you say do you think it's like all these guys are trying to sound like Hemingway, or they're all trying to sound
I think
like?
so.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to sound like Hemingway. I think they're trying to sound like John Updike. I think they're.
Or they're trying to sound like fucking Jack Kerouac.
Kerouac to.
Maybe
I
not as
haven't
much.
read enough Kerouac. I think it's less strict.
They're
It's
just
much
all
less stream
doing
of consciousness, and it's much more. The fucking malaise of American suburban life and the implications of that malaise, and I'm like, fucking whatever. This is fine, but it's like how many books in that same vein can you? I think it's more like who's the guy who wrote the movie with Mae West? Myra Breck.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
Gore Vidal.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's like him.
Yeah, from what I think I read something by him, but it's kind of the same vibe. It's 60s, 70s, 80s, that crowd, and I'm like.
That makes me think of like why I never got very far into Revolutionary Road. Because Revolutionary Road is basically very like, we're so bored in suburbia, and it's like and it's weird because I sometimes like books like that, like but I guess the book that I like that's like that was actually from like the 20s or the 30s. It was there's one called Babbitt about, I think by, I always mess the name up actually, so I won't say it, but there's one called Babbitt and one called Main Street by an author I really like. So he was already doing that theme, in the 20s and 30s, which a lot of people were already doing.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you could even argue that, like, Southern Gothic was in its way, like, doing that theme already. In a different way.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's not especially, it is something that's a bit tired by the 70s.
Yeah. And, like, it just gets very monoculture. It gets very, like, I get what they're trying to do. It's very much the zeitgeist of that time, but, like, what's the point? If I'm reading a book from the 80s, maybe I'll reread American Psycho, which, again, is not literary fiction. It straddles the genre between, like, literary and, like, pulp. And, again, bizarro fiction, because it's about a serial killer. It does some interesting psychological things. Again, I could be totally wrong. Maybe in the last 100, 150 pages it does something totally different and mind-blowing, but so far I'm like, why am I reading this?
Why did you pick it up?
It's supposed to be very good and famous. And
I've had it recommended to me quite a bit, too.
Yeah. You can read it once I'm done with it. I got it from
That's
the
okay.
So
It's not really...
Maybe even really mind-blowing in the last 100-some pages, but
It's a pretty big book to,
not
like,
small.
not enjoy it.
Yeah, well, Who else was? Yeah, it's also kind of part. Yeah, it's like all this stuff. Like, oh, it's this indictments of consumerism and like all of that shit. And I'm like, it's also part of the reason why I'm not really at all interested in reading Nabokov. It's the same environment. It's like he was working 50s, 60s, right? It's like it's the same environment. I feel like it's going to be the same monoculture, and I could be wrong. But you know, are these authors trying to imitate him? Probably. Are they trying to, you know, play off the expectation he set up?
I would say that it is what I would say is different. And the only thing that I've read by Nabokov that I remember is Lolita. I would say Lolita is one of the like most loving pictures of America that I have read. His indictment does not seem to be of American culture. It's like I said, it's one of the best road trip novels.
Is it 50s?
I think it's 50s.
Okay, so it's a little bit before that kind of 60s, 70s reaction.
I think maybe like what you also get there is the like view, like you said, a lot of the people you're talking about were probably born here. And like Nabokov really, like when he literally talked about Lolita, he said that it's like his he envisioned it. One is like this horrifying tale of what if there was this really shitty guy who tried to convince you he wasn't a shitbag, and also it was his tale of like, look how pretty America is. And there are some things in there that are also like, this is not great, and like this is trash. But it is like one of the most like pro-American like books I think that I've read from that period. Not in like just in like he's like, damn, like this place is pretty. This is a pretty, and like he's not really nice, I guess, about like Humbert is not complimentary about the Americans he talks to. But also Humbert is a horrid man. So he is not meant to be trusted. So I think you would probably not feel like it's the same as like.
I hope not, because I'm very tired of, like, I've consciously or unconsciously avoided that genre.
Right.
Because I have read in that genre, and I'm just not.
Oh, kind of like Catcher in the Rye, too, I guess.
Fuck Catcher in the Rye. Fuck Bradbury in particular.
Oh, right.
Even though he does sci-fi. Yeah, Salinger is absolutely part of it.
Yes.
It's the same voice. It's the same. I'm fine with Heller. I'm fine with Joseph Heller.
Oh, he's funny.
Yeah, exactly. He has a sense of humor. None of these other writers.
Yeah, I think that's the big problem. Is what, because it would, a lack of sense of humor means a lack of self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And I think that you can't, if you are a part of something and you're critiquing it, it's a bit disingenuous. And I think that humor helps you have that self-awareness to also like make fun of yourself.
Yeah, and it's kind of like.
Oh, you know who I hate that's like that? The fucking fuck, I read him. The book. It's not called Ham Sandwich. Is it called Ham Sandwich?
Oh, Ham on Rye.
Ham on Rye. What's that guy's name? Can't fucking stand that book. Which is a reference. Yeah, Bukowski. Which he is referencing Catcher in the Rye with that title, as well as just like a reference to like a memory he has about sandwiches. So he is like actively trying to be like that book. But he said it's also like he thinks that he's that he's funny. Mm-hmm. And it's not very funny. Yeah. It's just like, and it's just like reading that book made me never want to talk to a teenage boy again in my life, which I guess is like fine unless I have boy children.
Right. I guess we read Leary. That is a significant exception. Leary's pretty sui generis.
Well, like, so Leary is, but the thing is, Leary is, doing this, like...
He's weakly imitating movies.
Yes. Yeah. Leary is... That is the correct thing. Like, he's talking about the same thing.
Right.
But I think what's great about Leary is just how fucking unreliable he is.
Right.
And that kind of complicates it. I think the problem for a lot of... I think the lack of an unreliable narrator is the weakness in some of these other ones. Or, like, just the, like, the... Where you can feel the author there so aggressively. I never liked that.
Yeah. Well, I guess we just saw...
I'm gonna start...
Texas. And I think Paris, Texas... I think it's kind of funny. I think a lot of this stuff kind of... like bleeds through into filmmaking.
Yeah.
I think Paris, Texas is a better example of this because it's made by a non-American. I think Repo Man is an acceptable one because it has some self-awareness. It veers into self-parody in some cases, but it's still very much the same kind of bleak, 70s, 80s environment. I think something like those, even the French Connection, American movie, but you can't make a movie like that without kind of being self-aware. It's because it's just ridiculous. The script is ridiculous. The imagery is ridiculous. But again, it's a different. Of course, a crime novel is different.
I think also, and this is a problem that a lot of young writers have, but just the thought that you're in addition to just white men, the idea that just the way you feel is really interesting and would be really interesting to other people, and that is like not true by itself.
Yeah.
So I think like a lot of the authors from the period you're talking about are like really sure that just like the way they feel, and it probably, I mean, those books are well known, so it probably does speak to other people, but I think like it ends up only speaking to people who are within their like narrow demographic, rather than being a more universal, like you would want like a really good book to be.
Yeah, maybe, a lot of them are influenced by modernism, by Hemingway and so on, and they go really into this, and Kerouac, and this very personal narrative and so on, that they also try to make.
Yeah, because that was the thing that like the Beats in particular outright stated, we believe that the way we feel is important enough to be what we're writing about. But I think that they were doing that as a part of a larger movement.
Right.
It wasn't just egotism, rather. They were doing it as part of a larger, we believe that the way the individual feels, and specifically in poetry, because at the time poetry had become very formulaic and was about like how many references can you shove into your poem.
Thanks, James Joyce.
Yes, let's just blame him. But Joyce is and I guess like Joyce was kind of like trying to encapsulate everything using like a particular thing, and so the Beats were kind of were very much responding to modernism of this like idea of trying to capture everything, which had become like pretty formulaic, and they were saying like the way I feel right now matters enough to dedicate a poem to it. And I think that was really revolutionary in the 50s, but what is really revolutionary at one point is not going to be anymore 20 years later. So they were no longer like to just write, here's how it feels to be me bored in the suburbs in 1970 or whatever.
Or even worse, me starving in New York, imagining what those losers in the suburbs are doing.
Oh no! Is that what white noise is?
I have no idea. Under what circumstances the guy wrote it.
Because you're like, he's not actually like in the suburbs writing this.
I'm not sure whether the main character or the main character's friend from New York is the author insert.
Well, that's the other thing too, is I don't think that you can write well without, like, you can't come from a place of superiority. I think that poisons a book.
Yeah.
Or if you do come from a place of superiority, again, you have to like. So I read a book semi-recently that I thought was actually like a very good. It's very short. That's the other thing. I think something like that should be blessedly short. It's called Diary of an Oxygen Thief.
Mm.
It was published anonymously because it's just this horrible guy. It's like genuinely talking about how much of a horrible dude he is, and he's not like a criminal horrible. He's just a bad person. Like the way that he treats the people around him, and like he's just very selfish, and he like recognizes this, and it's weird because it's like. It's kind of like Catcher in the Rye. It's just this dude walking around fucking up his relationships. But it's actually like well done because I feel like I said, it's blessedly short, and the guy actually has some self-awareness, which I think made it blessedly short, and also like I don't know, it's odd to me that like he ended up doing that genre and theme very well. I think because he accepts, or he's very apparent of what an awful person he is. It's not a place of like, the people around me are the problem.
Right.
There is a sense of like, I am enabled by my context to behave like this, but there's not a sense of superiority to it. Mm-hmm. He's just like, I don't know how to act any other way, and no one's expecting me to be different.
Right. All right. Back to work.
Back to work. We're gonna play Artist Life Simulator. Also, kind of rude to leave right when I start talking.
What do you mean you've been talking?
Yeah, but like mostly I've been listening to you, and then as soon as I'm like, how about this other book,
well,
you just like got up and left. Now you don't want to distract me. You talked for like 20 minutes about a book you don't like.
All right, I'm gonna go back to reading a book.
All right, enjoy.